I sat in that mahogany-paneled attorney's office 3 days after burying my husband, watching my 3 children smile as they heard the numbers. $15 million to Daniel, $15 million to Lauren, $15 million to Jessica. Then the attorney looked at me and said, "And to my beloved wife, Candace, I leave this sealed letter." He handed me a simple white envelope. Daniel smirked. Lauren giggled. Jessica laughed out loud. "That's it? A letter?" "Oh, Mom, how humiliating," Daniel said. Lauren added, "Guess we know who Dad really loved." I sat frozen, clutching that envelope, feeling the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. I drove home alone from that office, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. 32 years of marriage, 32 years of raising those children by myself while Richard built his business empire. I gave up my teaching career, my dreams, everything to support this family, and this was my reward. A letter, while they got millions. The house felt enormous and empty when I walked through the door. Our home in suburban Connecticut had always been filled with noise and life, but now it echoed with silence. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd served thousands of meals, helped with homework, celebrated birthdays. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Maybe you can get a job at the grocery store, Mom. You'll need the income." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter in Richard's familiar scrawl, the handwriting I'd seen on anniversary cards, shopping lists, notes left on the refrigerator for 32 years. "My dearest Candace," it began. "If you're reading this, then they showed their true colors, just as I feared. I'm so sorry for what you've endured today. This key will lead you to the truth about everything. Go to Clearwater Storage, Unit 247. The code is our wedding date. Trust nothing they say. Trust what you find. You deserved better than what I became, but I'm trying to make it right. The children don't deserve what they received. They never did. All my love, Richard." A small brass key fell onto the table. I stared at it, confusion mixing with anger and grief. Richard had died 2 weeks ago from a sudden heart attack. He'd been sick for about 8 months, getting weaker and weaker. The doctors said it was stress from work. But this letter suggested he'd known he was dying. He'd planned this. Why would he humiliate me in front of our children and that attorney if he loved me? What could possibly be in a storage unit? My phone rang. "Daniel." I didn't answer. Then Lauren called. Then Jessica. They were calling to gloat. I knew it. I turned off my phone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Richard's words. The children don't deserve what they received. What did that mean? And why Clearwater Storage? I'd never heard of it. The next morning, I drove 40 minutes to the address I'd found online. Clearwater Storage sat in a rundown part of town I'd never visited. The facility was old, surrounded by chain-link fence, with rows of orange metal units stretching back from the road. I found Unit 247 in the back corner. My fingers trembled as I entered the code on the keypad. June 14th, 1976. Our wedding date. The lock clicked open. I used the brass key on the padlock and rolled up the metal door. Inside were filing cabinets, cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling, and a laptop sitting on a small folding table. Dust motes floated in the shaft of sunlight streaming through the open door. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. I opened the first filing cabinet. Inside were folders labeled with addresses, property deeds, investment statements. I pulled out a folder at random. Real estate holdings in Texas. Another folder showed commercial properties in Florida. A third revealed investment portfolios I'd never heard of. I spent the next hour going through the documents, my shock growing with each page. Richard had a completely separate business entity I knew nothing about. Properties across 7 states. Investment accounts worth tens of millions. I grabbed my phone and started calculating. This secret business had to be worth at least $150 million. Why hadn't the attorney mentioned any of this? Why wasn't this part of the will? I kept searching, pulling out box after box. Then I found a folder labeled Insurance Policy. Something about the way it sat apart from the others made my stomach clench. I opened it. Inside were printed emails. The header showed they were between Richard and our 3 children. I started reading, and the room seemed to tilt around me. The first email was from Daniel, dated 2 years ago. Once we establish she's got dementia, we can contest anything she tries to claim. Dad, you need to make sure the bulk goes to us in the public will. We'll handle Mom after. Lauren's email was next. Dr. Patterson agreed to the arrangement. He'll provide documentation when needed. Jessica's response made my blood run cold. The lawyer Howard is on board too. He'll make sure the probate goes smoothly. I kept reading, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the papers. There were dozens of emails spanning 2 years. My children discussing how to have me declared mentally incompetent, how to take control of Richard's assets, how to ensure I got nothing. Then I found Richard's response, dated 6 months ago. I know what you're planning. I'm changing everything. Candace will get what she deserves. The final email in the stack was from Daniel, sent just 1 month before Richard died. Dad, don't be stupid. We have everything in place. You're too sick to fight us now. I sat down on the concrete floor of that storage unit, surrounded by evidence of my children's betrayal. They'd been planning this for years. They'd conspired with my own doctor, with our family attorney. They'd worked their manipulation even as their father lay dying. But Richard had known. He'd tried to stop them. The $45 million he'd left them in the will, that must have been some kind of test or trap. The real fortune was hidden here, in these documents. And judging by these emails, my children knew about it. They were planning to take it all. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of everything. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence. Then I carefully took the most important papers and locked the storage unit behind me. As I drove home, my mind raced. I needed a lawyer, a good one, someone who could help me fight this. For the first time since Richard's funeral, I felt a spark of something other than grief. Anger, determination. My children thought they'd won. They thought they'd broken me. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I called an attorney I'd found online. Thomas Bradley had excellent reviews and specialized in probate disputes. His office was in downtown Hartford, in a glass tower that gleamed in the morning sun. I felt a flicker of hope as I rode the elevator to the 15th floor. Bradley was in his 50s, professionally dressed, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I showed him everything. The emails, the property documents, the evidence of the hidden business empire. I explained about the will reading, my children's laughter, the key in the letter. He listened carefully, taking notes. Mrs. Harrison, this is serious. Elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. We can definitely fight this. I'll need a $5,000 retainer to get started. I wrote the check from my personal account, grateful I still had access to some money. How long will this take? A few weeks to file the initial motions. Then it depends on how hard they fight back. He smiled reassuringly. But you have strong evidence. I think we can win this. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Finally, someone believed me. Someone was going to help me fight back. That afternoon, everything changed. A process server appeared at my front door. He handed me a thick stack of legal papers and walked away before I could even ask questions. I carried them inside, my hands already starting to shake before I even read the first page. Petition for determination of incapacity. My 3 children were asking the court to declare me mentally incompetent. The document claimed I had advanced dementia, couldn't manage finances, posed a danger to myself. The court date was set for 3 weeks from now. Attached to the petition was a medical evaluation from Dr. Raymond Patterson, my doctor, the man I'd trusted for 20 years. His report was detailed and damning. He claimed I'd shown signs of cognitive decline for 2 years. Memory loss, confusion, paranoid ideation. He listed specific incidents, dates, symptoms. None of it was true. Not a single word. But there it was, on official letterhead, signed and notarized. This was the doctor mentioned in the emails, the one they'd bribed. I grabbed my phone to call Bradley. Before I could dial, another call came through. My bank. Mrs. Harrison, this is David Chen from First National. I'm calling to inform you that your accounts have been temporarily frozen pending a competency determination hearing. What? You can't do that. I'm sorry, ma'am. We received a court order this morning. Your children filed an emergency petition claiming you might dissipate assets in your confused state. Until the competency hearing resolves, all your accounts are frozen. I hung up and immediately checked my bank app. He was right. My checking account, savings account, everything showed zero available balance. I had $300 in cash in my purse. That was it. I tried my credit cards. All frozen. My children had moved fast. They'd used the probate court filing to trigger an immediate financial lockdown. I had no money, no access to anything. How was I supposed to pay for an attorney? How was I supposed to live? I called Bradley's office. His secretary said he was in court but would call me back. I left 3 messages over the next 2 days. He never returned my calls. Finally, on the 3rd day, I reached him. His voice was cold, completely different from our first meeting. Mrs. Harrison, given the competency filing, I don't think I can represent you. It would be unethical to take money from someone who's been legally declared potentially incompetent. I'm withdrawing from representation. I'll return your retainer minus consultation fees. But I'm not incompetent. That's why I need you to fight this. I'm sorry. My decision is final. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, understanding washing over me. Bradley had been recommended by one of Daniel's business associates. He was part of the setup. His job had been to find out what evidence I had and report back to my children. Now that he knew, he was abandoning me. I tried to call friends from my book club. Patricia answered, but her voice was strained. Candace, I don't know what to say. Daniel called me. He said you've been having episodes. He said you might reach out with wild stories about conspiracies. We're all very worried about you. Patricia, please. I'm not sick. My children are lying. Honey, Daniel sent us Dr. Patterson's report. Maybe you should get help. There's no shame in dementia. She didn't believe me. None of them would. I called my sister in California. Sarah had always been my closest confidant. Surely she would believe me. Candace, the kids sent me the medical report too. Sweetheart, I think you need to listen to them. They're trying to help you. Dementia runs in families. Remember how Mom was at the end? I don't have dementia. That's what Mom said too. Please, just go to the evaluation. Let the doctors help you. Even my own sister thought I was losing my mind. I spent the next few days in a haze of desperation. Every person I called had already been contacted by my children. Every friend, every distant relative, every professional contact. They'd poisoned everyone against me. I was completely isolated. Then the article appeared online. Local news website. Local woman contests. Children's inheritance. Family seeks competency hearing. The article painted me as a difficult, confused, elderly woman refusing to accept her husband's wishes. They quoted Daniel extensively. We love our mother, but Dad knew she wasn't capable of managing a large estate. He provided for her through the letter. We just want to make sure she's cared for. The comments section was brutal. Strangers calling me greedy, a gold digger, telling me to let it go. I read every comment, each one like a knife to my heart. That evening, another certified letter arrived. This one made my blood turn to ice. The competency hearing had been moved up. Instead of 3 weeks, it was now scheduled for 1 week from today. The reason? Urgent concerns about her well-being. Attached was another petition. My 3 children were requesting I be involuntarily committed to a psychiatric evaluation facility before the hearing for my own safety. A judge had granted a temporary order. If I didn't appear voluntarily at Meadowbrook Psychiatric Facility tomorrow morning, police would escort me there by force. I had 24 hours before I lost all freedom. I sat alone in my house that night, every light blazing, because I was too terrified to sit in darkness. My children had cut off my money, turned my friends against me, bribed my doctor, bought off attorneys and judges. They'd boxed me in completely, and now they were going to lock me away. I had no money, no lawyer, no allies, and nowhere to run. The walls were closing in, and I couldn't see any way out. At 2 in the morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Harrison? This is Gerald Montrose. I was your husband's business partner. We need to talk. Tonight. Right now. How did you get this number? How do I know you're not with them? Because they screwed me too. Richard and I built Thompson Montrose Enterprises together. 30 years of partnership. When he got sick, your kids convinced him to buy me out for $5 million. The company's worth $200 million. They gave me $5 million and a non-compete agreement. I can't even work in my own industry anymore. They destroyed me just like they're destroying you. Something in his voice rang true. Desperation. Anger. The same emotions churning in my gut. Where do you want to meet? Danny's Diner, on Route 9. I'll be in the back booth. I drove through empty streets to the all-night diner, checking my mirrors constantly, half convinced this was another trap. But what choice did I have? Gerald Montrose sat in the last booth, a cup of coffee cooling in front of him. He was 65, maybe, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much disappointment. He looked up as I approached, and I saw recognition in his face. You look like your wedding photo. Richard kept it on his desk. I slid into the booth across from him. Tell me what you know. He did. For the next hour, Gerald laid out the scope of Richard's business empire. Thompson Montrose Enterprises wasn't just big, it was massive. Commercial real estate across 12 states, investment portfolios in international markets, holdings in tech companies, pharmaceutical startups, renewable energy projects. The $5 million buyout had been theft, plain and simple. Your kids orchestrated everything, Gerald said, his voice bitter. Daniel joined the company about 3 years ago. Suddenly, Richard started listening to him instead of me. Lauren married a corporate lawyer who started advising Richard. Jessica somehow got power of attorney last year. They worked him like a puppet master works strings. Did Richard know what they were doing? Near the end, I think he figured it out. He tried to fight back, but he was so sick. They had doctors giving him medications that made him foggy. They isolated him from anyone who might have helped him see clearly. Gerald pulled out a folder. I've been investigating since they pushed me out. I found something you need to know about. He spread documents on the table. Legal papers, financial statements, corporate filings. Richard created a revocable trust right before he died, maybe 2 weeks before the heart attack. The trust is separate from the will. It holds the real assets, the actual company, the properties, everything valuable. My heart started pounding. Who's the beneficiary? You. The trust names you as sole beneficiary. But there's a catch. He pointed to a clause in the trust document. You have to be of sound mind to claim it. If you're declared incompetent, the trust dissolves and everything goes to surviving issue. Your children. That's why they were rushing the competency hearing. That's why they needed me declared incompetent immediately. If I was legally found to be of sound mind, I inherited everything. If not, they got it all. Where are the original trust documents? That's the problem. They were in Richard's personal safe. Daniel cleaned out the entire home office when Richard died. Said he was securing business documents. I think they have the originals and plan to destroy them before the hearing. My mind raced. Richard had another office, a small private office downtown where he went to think. I still have keys. Gerald's eyes lit up. Can you get there? When? Tonight. Right now. If those documents exist anywhere, we need to find them before your children do. We drove separately to the downtown office building. At 3 in the morning, the streets were empty, the building dark. I used my key to enter through the service entrance, and we took the elevator to the 10th floor. Richard's private office was small, just one room with a desk, a bookshelf, and a leather chair facing the window. It had been mostly cleared out, but not completely. We searched frantically, pulling books off shelves, checking drawers, looking for any hiding place. Gerald found the safe behind a painting of sailing ships. It was a wall safe, the kind that requires a combination. I tried our anniversary, our children's birthdays. Nothing worked. Someone's been trying to open this, Gerald said, pointing to scratches around the dial. See? They've been here, trying different combinations. I stood back, thinking, what number would Richard use that the children wouldn't know? Then it hit me. Richard's mother had died when he was young. He'd told me once that he thought about her every year on her birthday. March 27th, 1928. I spun the dial. 3:27:28. The safe clicked open. Inside were documents, trust papers with official seals and signatures, a handwritten ledger in Richard's careful script, detailed financial records. I grabbed my phone and started photographing everything. Gerald pulled out the ledger. Look at this. Richard was tracking payments. $50,000 to Dr. Patterson, $20,000 to Attorney Howard, various payments to others. He looked up, his face grim. But these are marked, paid by D.H., Daniel Harrison. Richard wasn't making these payments. He was documenting them. My husband had known everything. He'd been keeping evidence, building a case, but he'd run out of time. I found another folder marked Evidence, Unsafe Deposit Box 447. Inside was a note and a key taped to the page. Key for First National Bank, Downtown Branch. The note read, if you're reading this, they may have already gotten there. God forgive me for not being stronger. We need to get to that bank, I said. But before I could say another word, the office lights blazed on. I spun around, my heart jumping into my throat. Daniel, Lauren, and Jessica stood in the doorway with 2 security guards in uniform behind them. I knew you'd come here eventually, Mom, Daniel said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. You're so predictable. Lauren smiled, breaking and entering. Theft. This is perfect. Call the police, Jessica said to the security guards. Wait, Gerald said. She has keys. She's his widow. This isn't breaking and entering. You're trespassing too, Montrose, Daniel said coldly. The estate owns this office now. You have no right to be here. The security guards looked uncertain, but they pulled out phones. Within minutes, police arrived. 2 officers in Hartford PD uniforms came into the office, took statements, looked at the situation. I tried to explain. Showed them my keys, explained I was Richard's widow. But Daniel had an answer for everything. As executor of the estate, he now controlled all properties. I had no authorization to be here. Neither did Gerald. We'd broken in at 3 a.m. and were stealing documents. Gerald protested. She's being set up. Her children are trying to steal her inheritance. But to the police, it looked bad. An elderly woman and a disgruntled ex-partner breaking into an office in the middle of the night. Daniel played his role perfectly. Concerned son worried about his confused mother. He showed the officers the competency petition, Dr. Patterson's medical report. She's not well, Daniel told them sadly. She has dementia. She's convinced we're all conspiring against her. We've been trying to get her help. They arrested us. Both of us. Put us in handcuffs and let us out of the building. I spent that night in a holding cell at Hartford Police Station. Cold concrete walls, a metal bench, fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. I was charged with breaking and entering and attempted theft. A public defender appeared briefly, a harried woman named Amy with too many cases and too little time. Best I can do is get you released on recognizance, she said. But with the competency hearing tomorrow, the judge might deny bail. Tomorrow? The hearing was next week. Emergency motion. Your children filed it this morning. Judge granted it based on your arrest. They're calling you a danger to yourself and others. Gerald made bail by morning. He had money, resources, a lawyer. I didn't. But they released me anyway, probably because I hadn't technically stolen anything. I was free by 10 a.m, just hours before the competency hearing. My phone rang as I walked out of the police station. Gerald. I answered, hoping he'd come back, help me prepare for the hearing. Candace, I'm so sorry. His voice was strained. My lawyer says if I help you anymore, I violate my non-compete agreement. They'll sue me for everything. I have grandchildren. I can't risk losing everything I have left. Gerald, please. You're on your own. I'm sorry. I really am. He hung up. I stood on the courthouse steps, alone. The competency hearing was in 4 hours. I had no lawyer, no evidence, no allies. My arrest was now part of the record, making me look exactly as crazy as my children claimed. I walked back to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and let myself cry for the first time since Richard died. Great, racking sobs that shook my whole body. I'd tried so hard to fight back. I'd found evidence, hired a lawyer, searched for the truth. And every single step had made things worse. My public defender called. Mrs. Harrison, I reviewed your case. Best advice? Plead to reduce charges and agree to psychiatric evaluation. Your children will drop the competency hearing if you voluntarily commit yourself to care. You'll avoid a criminal record and get the help you need. Help I didn't need. Care that was really imprisonment. The hearing's at 2, she said. Think about it. This is the best deal you're going to get. I sat in that car, holding the only thing police had let me keep from the office. The original letter from Richard. The one that started all this. I unfolded it, read his words again. Trust nothing they say. Trust what you find. But what had I found? Nothing but more betrayal, more traps, more ways for my children to destroy me. Maybe I should just give up, accept the evaluation, accept that I'd lost. At least in a care facility, I'd have a bed and 3 meals a day. I almost did it. Almost drove straight to Meadowbrook and surrendered. But something made me unfold the letter one more time, hold it up to the sunlight streaming through the windshield. And that's when I saw it. Faint lines in the paper, visible only when backlit. Numbers. Coordinates, maybe? I grabbed a pen from the glove box and wrote them down. 41.308, 2 degrees north. 72.9, 282 degrees west. What did they mean? The competency hearing was held in courtroom 3 at Hartford Superior Court. I sat at the defendant's table with my public defender, feeling like I was attending my own execution. The courtroom was nearly full. Some media, curious onlookers drawn by the sensational nature of the case. My 3 children sat in the front row with their attorney, Preston Cole, who wore a suit that probably cost more than I'd spent on clothes in 5 years. Judge Margaret Fletcher entered, and we all rose. She was 62, gray-haired, with an stern expression that softened slightly when she looked at me. Maybe there was hope after all. The hearing began with Dr. Raymond Patterson taking the stand. Preston Cole questioned him with practiced ease. Dr. Patterson, how long have you treated Mrs. Harrison? 20 years. And when did you first notice signs of cognitive decline? About 2 years ago. She forgot appointments. Called my office repeatedly asking questions she'd already asked. Showed confusion about her medications and finances. He was lying. Every word was a lie. But he said it all with such confidence, such professional authority. He showed medical charts, pointed to entries that supposedly documented my decline. How much had my children paid him to create this false history? Did you recommend testing? Multiple times. She refused. Denial is common with dementia patients. I wanted to scream that I'd never refused anything because he'd never suggested testing. But my public defender had warned me to stay quiet, stay calm. Any emotional outburst would be seen as proof of instability. During cross-examination, Amy asked a few weak questions that Patterson batted away easily. She wasn't trying very hard. Maybe she believed the medical report. Maybe she just had too many other cases to care. Then my children testified. Daniel went first. He was a good actor. I had to give him that. Tearful but composed. Loving but concerned. Mom called me 12 times in one day, asking the same question about Dad's medications. She accused our mailman of stealing her mail. She forgot my children's names at Thanksgiving. None of it was true. I'd called him once that day, about Richard's condition. The mailman's story was fabricated from nothing, and I knew my grandchildren's names perfectly well. But Daniel told his lies with such conviction. He presented text messages as evidence, though I noticed they were carefully edited to remove context. He showed emails where I'd questioned financial statements, framing my legitimate concerns as paranoid delusions. Preston Cole introduced Richard's emails next, messages where my husband had expressed worry about my memory, but I could see they'd been taken completely out of context. An email saying Candace seems distracted lately became evidence of dementia, not evidence of a grieving wife watching her husband die. Lauren testified next. More invented incidents. More crocodile tears. Then Jessica, who actually cried on the stand. "We just want Mom to be safe and cared for," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "We're not trying to take anything from her. We love her." I watched this performance and felt something cold settle in my chest. These were my children. I'd given birth to them, raised them, loved them, unconditionally, and they were casually destroying me with the ease of people swatting a fly. Then Preston Cole brought out his most damning evidence. My recent behavior. Breaking into the storage unit. Getting arrested at Richard's office. My accusations against doctors, lawyers, and my own children. "Classic paranoid dementia," he said. "She's created an elaborate conspiracy theory to explain her confusion. She believes her own doctor is plotting against her. She broke into private property based on delusions about secret money. This is a woman who needs help, Your Honor, not independence." He showed the court my texts to friends, messages where I'd begged them to believe me about the conspiracy. Out of context, they looked unhinged, desperate, crazy. Judge Fletcher called a recess. For 15 minutes, I sat in that courtroom, surrounded by people who thought I was losing my mind. Then something unexpected happened. Judge Fletcher returned and made an announcement. "I'm recusing myself from this case due to a scheduling conflict. Judge Martin Brenner will hear the remainder of the proceedings." My heart sank. Judge Fletcher had seemed fair, had actually listened to me. Now she was being replaced? Judge Martin Brenner entered. He was 70, with cold eyes, and a thin mouth set in a permanent frown. I overheard my public defender whisper to the clerk, "Isn't Brenner the one whose firm does work for Preston Cole?" The clerk shrugged. "Different division, probably fine." But it wasn't fine. I could see it in Brenner's face as he quickly reviewed the case. He'd already made up his mind. "Mrs. Harrison, would you like to testify?" he asked. Amy advised against it, but I couldn't just sit there. I took the stand. I told my story as clearly and calmly as I could. The letter from Richard, the key, the storage unit with documents showing my children's conspiracy, the emails planning to have me declared incompetent, the evidence of Richard's secret business empire, the trust that would give me everything if I was found competent. Judge Fletcher's replacement actually listened. Judge Brenner asked thoughtful questions. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I might be believed. "Do you have this physical evidence?" Brenner asked. My heart plummeted. "It was confiscated when I was arrested. It's in police evidence lockup." "So, you have no evidence to present to this court?" "The documents exist. They can be retrieved." But I could see him dismissing my claims. Without physical evidence, it was just my word against trained medical professionals and my tearful children. During a brief recess, I sat alone on a bench in the hallway, feeling the weight of defeat crushing down on me. Then a woman sat next to me. Mid-40s, professionally dressed, unfamiliar. She pretended to read a newspaper. "Don't react," she said quietly. "Don't look at me." She slid a folded note under my purse and walked away quickly. I waited, then discreetly opened it. "Your husband knew they would do this. Check the letter again. The key opens something else. Look closer at what you haven't seen. Box 447. A friend. Box 447. The coordinates I'd found in the letter. They must point to something. But what? Court resumed. Judge Brenner delivered his ruling without preamble. Based on the medical evidence, the testimony of the petitioners, and the respondents' recent concerning behavior, I find that Mrs. Candace Harrison is suffering from cognitive impairment requiring supervised care. She is hereby placed under temporary guardianship of her children pending full psychiatric evaluation. She will be admitted to Meadowbrook Psychiatric Facility for 30 days. All financial decisions require approval of Daniel Harrison as executor of the estate. The gavel fell. Just like that, I'd lost everything. My freedom, my finances, my independence, all gone. Preston Cole shook hands with my children. They looked satisfied, triumphant. Daniel approached me. "We'll take good care of you, Mother. Meadowbrook is very comfortable," Lauren added sweetly. "Just accept it. You can't win." Jessica leaned close and whispered, "That letter was just Dad's guilty conscience. You get nothing." 2 orderlies from Meadowbrook arrived. They weren't rough, but they were firm. Time to go. Time to be locked away while my children divided up everything Richard and I had built. But I still had the mysterious woman's note in my pocket. And I still had Richard's letter with its hidden coordinates. Box 447. I didn't know what it meant yet, but it was something. A thread to pull. A chance, however slim, that this wasn't over. They led me out of the courthouse and into a waiting van. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back at the building and saw my 3 children standing on the steps, smiling. They thought they'd won. Maybe they had. But I wasn't done fighting yet. The transport van drove through Hartford streets while I sat in the back, my mind racing. The coordinates from the letter kept running through my head. 41.3082 north, 72.9282 west. The mysterious woman had said box 447. They had to be connected. Meadowbrook Psychiatric Facility sat on a landscaped campus outside the city. From the outside, it looked more like an expensive hotel than a psychiatric hospital. Brick buildings, manicured lawns, gardens with late-season flowers still blooming. But I knew better. This was a cage with pretty bars. The intake process was methodical and humiliating. They inventoried my belongings, took my purse, my phone, my shoes. A nurse named Brenda, about 55 with kind eyes, processed me. "Please," I said when she reached for my purse. "There's a letter from my late husband inside. It's all I have left of him." Brenda hesitated, then pulled out the letter. She read the first few lines, and something in her expression softened. "I'll let you keep this, but the purse has to go into storage." "Thank you." She led me to a small room. Private, at least. A bed, a chair, a small bathroom. A window that didn't open looked out over the gardens. The door had a lock on the outside. "Your evaluation begins tomorrow," Brenda said. "Try to rest. Someone will check on you every 2 hours. If you need anything, press the call button." After she left, I heard the lock click. I was officially a prisoner. I sat on the bed and pulled out Richard's letter. I'd read it so many times I had it memorized, but now I studied it differently, held it up to the lamplight. The coordinates appeared faintly, visible only when backlit. Box 447, First National Bank. I'd looked up the coordinates on Gerald's phone when we were at the diner. They pointed to that downtown branch. There was a safety deposit box there. Richard had left me another clue, another key to unlock the truth. But how could I get there from inside a locked psychiatric facility? That night, Brenda checked on me during her rounds. I made a decision to trust her. Maybe it was desperation, maybe it was intuition, but I had to try. "Brenda, can I show you something?" She came into the room, leaving the door ajar. I showed her the letter, explained about the hidden coordinates, what they pointed to. "If I'm crazy," I said, "these numbers mean nothing. But if I'm not, they might prove my children are lying. Will you just look them up, please?" Brenda studied me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and typed in the coordinates. Her eyebrows rose. "First National Bank, downtown New Haven. What's there?" "A safety deposit box. Number 447. My husband left evidence there. Evidence of what my children did." Your kids seemed. Brenda paused, choosing words carefully. When they admitted you, they were very eager. Too eager. I've worked here 15 years. I've seen families place parents here for the wrong reasons. I poured out my story. The will reading, the 15 million for each child, the letter and key, the storage unit, the conspiracy I'd uncovered, the arrest, the competency hearing. Everything. Brenda listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "I believe you." 3 words. 3 simple words, but they meant everything. Someone finally believed me. "But I can't help you escape," she continued. "I'd lose my license. This job is all I have. What if I just left? Can you stop me? During the day shift? No. The doors aren't locked during business hours. You're technically a voluntary admit until the full 30-day evaluation begins tomorrow morning. Until then, you could leave against medical advice. What time does day shift start? 6 in the morning. I had until then. One chance to walk out of here before the evaluation locked me in for 30 days. I couldn't sleep. At 5:30, I dressed in the clothes I'd worn to the hearing, rumpled, but they'd have to do. At 5:40, I opened my door. The hallway was quiet. I walked to the front desk where a different nurse sat doing paperwork. "I'm checking myself out," I said, keeping my voice steady. She looked up, surprised. "Mrs. Harrison, you're scheduled for evaluation this morning. I'm leaving against medical advice. You can't stop me." She picked up the phone. "I need to call your guardians. I'm not fully admitted yet. The court order doesn't take effect until the evaluation begins. I still have the right to leave." She hesitated, uncertain. I didn't wait for her to decide. I walked to the front door, pushed it open, and stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness. I had no phone, no money, no transportation. But I was free. I walked to the main road and found a bus stop just as the sun was rising. I had $5 in quarters at the bottom of my purse, money they'd missed during intake, enough for bus fare. It took 3 transfers and 2 hours, but I made it to downtown New Haven. First National Bank sat on the corner of Church and Chapel Streets, a grand old building with marble columns and brass fixtures. I pushed through the revolving doors at 10 in the morning, just as they opened for business. The bank manager, a woman in her 40s with Carol on her name tag, greeted me professionally. "How can I help you today?" "I need to access safety deposit box 447. It was registered to my late husband, Richard Harrison." Carol checked her computer, her fingers clicking across the keyboard. "I see the box. Are you listed as authorized?" "I'm his widow. I'll need to see identification and documentation of authorization." My heart sank. I had my driver's license, but no other documentation. Daniel had everything else. Carol saw my expression and checked her computer again. Her eyes widened slightly. "Wait, there's a special instruction on this box. Let me read it exactly. If Candace Harrison requests access, allow it regardless of other claims. Her word is sufficient." Notarized June 10th, 2024. Richard had planned for this. Even from beyond the grave, he was still protecting me. "Do you have the key?" Carol asked. "The brass key. The one from the letter." I'd been carrying it this whole time. I pulled it from my pocket with shaking hands. Carol led me through security doors into the vault. Row after row of brass boxes lined the walls. Box 447 was larger than I expected, almost like a small drawer. Carol used her master key, then I used mine. The box slid out smoothly. "I'll give you privacy," Carol said, leading me to a small room with a table and chair. "Take your time." Inside the box were treasures beyond price. A tablet computer, fully charged. A detailed letter in Richard's handwriting. 3 USB drives labeled by date. Original signed trust documents with official seals. Detailed financial records. And an envelope marked "Open First" in red letters. My hands shook as I opened that envelope. Inside was a short note and a flash drive. "Candace, this video will explain everything. Watch it alone. What I have to tell you will hurt, but you need to know the truth. I'm so sorry, R." I plugged the flash drive into the tablet. Carol had mentioned the room had Wi-Fi if I needed it. I clicked on the video file. Richard's face appeared on the screen. He was so thin, so sick. This had been recorded maybe 3 months before he died. He sat in an unfamiliar room, probably somewhere the children wouldn't find him. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. "Candace," he began, and his voice broke. "If you're watching this, then you've survived their first attacks. I'm so proud of you. I'm so sorry I left you to face this alone. I was a coward. I should have been stronger." He paused, gathered himself, continued. "I need to tell you the truth about how I'm dying. It's not a heart condition. It's not stress. Our children are poisoning me." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the table. "I figured it out about 6 months ago," Richard continued. "I was getting sicker, but my symptoms didn't match any diagnosis. I had a private doctor run tests without telling anyone. Arsenic. Small doses over time, making me slowly weaker. I had the house tested, tracked where it was coming from. My coffee mug, the one Lauren always filled for me in the morning. The supplements Daniel brought me every day. The tea Jessica made me every evening." He coughed, wiped his eyes. "They were all in on it. They wanted me dead. They wanted the money. I found their communications, their plans. Lauren's husband got the poison. Daniel administered it. Jessica distracted my regular doctors, convinced them I was just stressed and aging poorly. They've been killing me for almost a year." Tears streamed down my face as I watched my husband confess to his own murder. I was too weak to fight them directly. If I'd gone to the police, they would have convinced everyone I was confused, paranoid from my illness. The same thing they're doing to you now. So I set a trap instead. He leaned closer to the camera. "The will that gave them $15 million each? That was bait. I wanted them to think they'd won. But the real fortune, everything we built together, it goes to you through an ironclad trust. The trust documents are in this box. $500 million, Candace. Not 200 like Gerald thought. 500 million in real estate, investments, and holdings. 500 million. The number didn't even feel real. I've documented everything. The USB drives contain recordings of their conversations, financial records showing the poison purchases, medical evidence, communications between the children, emails with Dr. Patterson showing the bribes, records of payments to Attorney Howard. And yes, even proof that Judge Brenner was bribed months ago, just waiting for this case to come to him. So, Brenner was bought too. The whole system had been corrupted. Everything you need is here. Evidence to destroy them. Evidence to send them to prison for what they did to me and what they're doing to you. The password to access all the evidence files is our wedding song, Unforgettable. We danced to it at our reception. You wore a white dress that made you look like an angel." His voice broke completely. "I failed you, Candace. I let them become monsters. I should have stopped them years ago when they started turning cruel. I thought it was a phase. I thought they'd grow out of it. But I enabled them by giving them money, success, power, and they learned they could take whatever they wanted without consequences. I created this. And now I'm leaving you to clean up my mess." He wiped his face. "Fight back. You're stronger than they know, stronger than I ever was. They need to face justice for what they did, for all of it. I love you. I'm sorry. I hope someday you can forgive me." The video ended. I sat in that small room, surrounded by evidence of my children's crimes, and felt a strange calm settle over me. Grief, yes. Horror, absolutely. But also something else. Clarity, purpose. My phone, which I'd just gotten back from the bank, suddenly buzzed. I'd turned it on. Mistake. A voicemail from Daniel. "Mother, you left Meadowbrook against medical advice. That's a violation of the court order. We've issued a warrant for your custody. The police are looking for you. If you turn yourself in now, we'll be lenient. If not, you're officially a fugitive. You have 2 hours." I looked at the evidence surrounding me. The video confession. The documents. The USB drives, filled with proof. My children had poisoned their father, stolen his fortune, and tried to destroy me. They'd bribed doctors, lawyers, and judges. They'd turned my friends against me and had me declared incompetent. But I had the truth now, and truth was a weapon they couldn't buy, or corrupt, or lock away. It was time to fight back. I worked quickly. First, I made copies of everything at the bank using their business center. Then I uploaded Richard's video and the evidence files to a cloud service using the tablet. The password was indeed unforgettable, and what I found on those drives was devastating. Hours of audio recordings, financial transactions, email chains. Richard had been thorough. I couldn't go to local police. Daniel had them looking for me with a custody warrant. I needed someone who couldn't be bought, someone who operated outside the local system, federal authorities. Using the bank's phone, I called the FBI field office in New Haven. They transferred me 3 times before I reached someone who would listen. Financial Crimes Division. Agent Linda Morrison speaking. My name is Candace Harrison. My 3 children poisoned my husband and are trying to have me institutionalized to steal $500 million. I have video confession and documentary evidence. A pause. That's a very serious claim, Mrs. Harrison. Where are you right now? If I tell you, will you arrest me on a custody warrant? Another pause, longer this time. Are you the Candace Harrison from the competency hearing? You've heard about that? We've been alerted you left a psychiatric facility. But Mrs. Harrison, if you truly have evidence of federal crimes, come to the federal building. Bring everything. We'll sort it out. It was a risk. But I was out of options. I took a taxi to the FBI field office using money Carol loaned me from her personal purse. The federal building was imposing, all concrete and security. Agent Morrison met me in the lobby with her partner, Agent Paul Chen. They were both in their 40s, professional, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. They took me to an interview room, not unkind but not warm either. I presented everything. The tablet with Richard's video confession, the USB drives, the trust documents, the financial records showing the poison purchases. They watched the video in silence, reviewed the documents. Agent Chen plugged the USB drives into a secure laptop and started going through files. 20 minutes passed, then an hour. They occasionally exchanged glances, but said nothing to me. Finally, Agent Morrison turned to me. Mrs. Harrison, this is remarkable evidence, but I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. Here it came, the other shoe, the revelation that somehow this too was compromised. We've been investigating your children for 6 months. I stared at her. What? Agent Chen explained. Daniel's company has been under FBI scrutiny for securities fraud. We've been tracking suspicious transactions. Lauren's husband is being investigated for money laundering through his law firm. And Jessica's charity foundation, the one she started last year, is a front for tax fraud. I hadn't even known Jessica had a charity foundation. But we didn't have evidence connecting them to murder or elder abuse, Morrison continued. Your evidence is the missing piece we needed. This is bigger than you know, Mrs. Harrison. Your children aren't just going after you. They've been running multiple criminal enterprises. They wanted to use my evidence. But more than that, they wanted to catch my children in the act. The competency hearing ruling can be challenged, Morrison said. But it's better if we catch them discussing their crimes on tape. We want you to wear a wire and go back to Meadowbrook voluntarily. They'll never confess to me. They think they've won. Winners gloat, Chen said. Plus, we have leverage. Daniel's company is about to be raided for securities fraud this afternoon. If Daniel knows that's coming, he might panic. Panicked people say things they shouldn't. Morrison leaned forward. We'll be monitoring the entire time. Any sign of danger, we extract you immediately. But if you can get them to talk about the poison, about their plans, about the bribes, we can put them away for life. I thought about Richard's video. His regret at not being stronger. His plea for me to fight back. This was my chance. I'll do it. They spent 2 hours prepping me. fitted me with a tiny recording device disguised as a button on my shirt, coached me on what to say, how to push them toward admissions without being obvious. They showed me satellite surveillance photos of my children's homes, explained the simultaneous raids they'd be conducting. "Remember," Morrison said, "we just need them to admit to the core crimes. The poisoning, the plan to have you killed at Meadowbrook, the bribes. Get them talking, and we've got them." At 3 in the afternoon, I returned to Meadowbrook voluntarily. The staff was shocked to see me. "I got confused," I said, playing the role they expected. I wandered off. "I'm sorry. I'm ready for my evaluation now." They called my children immediately. All 3 arrived within 45 minutes, faster than I'd expected. The FBI had predicted correctly. They wanted to confront me together, present a united front. A staff member led us to a private consultation room. 4 chairs, a table, a window with blinds drawn. Candace, Daniel, Lauren, and Jessica. One last family meeting. Daniel was angry. "You embarrassed us, Mother. Running away like that. Do you have any idea what you put us through?" I played confused, defeated. "I'm sorry. I just needed to think." Lauren's voice dripped false sweetness. "You can't think anymore, Mom. That's the point. Let us take care of everything." This was my opening. "I found your father's letter again. He mentioned a key. Did you know about a key?" Jessica laughed, sharp and cruel. "Of course we knew. Dad was setting up that stupid trust. We knew about the safety deposit box. We got there first, months ago. Cleaned it out. There's nothing left for you to find." They were lying or confused. They must have gone to a different box. But their admission was useful. "You took everything?" I pressed. Daniel's arrogance showed through. Everything that mattered. The original trust papers, his so-called evidence. We destroyed it all. The trust was set up wrong anyway. Our lawyer confirmed it's invalid. "You get nothing, Mother. Nothing. I took the biggest risk of my life. He knew you poisoned him." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Jessica recovered first, laughing nervously. "Poisoned?" "Mom, that's the dementia talking." "Arsenic," I said quietly. "In his food." Lauren went pale. "That's ridiculous." Dad had a heart condition. Daniel stood abruptly. "This conversation is over. You're insane." But I pushed harder. He had tests done. Private tests. He knew. Daniel's face flushed red. "If he knew anything, he's dead now, isn't he? Dead men don't testify. Dead men don't contest wills or trusts or anything else." "Daniel, shut up," Lauren hissed. But the dam had broken. Daniel was on a roll, too arrogant to stop. "She can't prove anything. She has no evidence. She's legally incompetent. Nobody will believe her. Not the police, not the courts, not anyone." Jessica, always the cruelest, leaned across the table. Dad was weak. He was taking too long to die. We did what we had to do. Sometimes you have to take action to get what you deserve. "Jessica!" Lauren grabbed her sister's arm, but Jessica shook her off. "It doesn't matter. Who's going to believe her? She's in a mental facility. We have Dr. Patterson, Judge Brenner, Attorney Howard, everyone. The system is ours." Daniel nodded. "Exactly. And after the evaluation, after she's officially declared incompetent, we'll make sure she's comfortable. Very comfortable. Meadowbrook has excellent end-of-life care." The threat was clear. They were planning to kill me too, just like they'd killed Richard. The door burst open. FBI agents flooded the room. Agent Morrison led the charge, her badge held high. Other agents in tactical gear streamed in behind her. Daniel Harrison, Lauren Harrison Chen, Jessica Harrison. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. Murder in the first degree, attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, bribery of public officials, and racketeering." My children's faces went through a spectrum of emotions. Shock, confusion, and then understanding as they saw the recording device on my shirt. "You're under arrest," Agent Chen added, stepping forward to handcuff Daniel. "You have the right to remain silent." "This is entrapment," Daniel shouted. Your mother wore a wire, Morrison said calmly. We recorded everything you just said. Plus, we have your father's video confession and documentary evidence from safety deposit box 447. The box you didn't know about. Jessica screamed at me. You set us up! You lying witch! No, I said quietly. You did this to yourselves. Every bit of it. More agents appeared in the doorway. Dr. Patterson is in custody. Attorney Howard is in custody. Judge Brenner is in custody. All locations secured. They'd conducted simultaneous raids across the city. Dr. Patterson at his clinic. Howard at his law office. Judge Brenner at his home. Bank accounts were being frozen. Daniel's company was being shut down. Lauren's husband had been arrested at his office. Jessica's charity foundation was being seized. The empire my children had built through corruption and murder was crumbling in real time. Agent Chen pulled me aside as they led my children away in handcuffs. There's something else you need to see. He showed me documents they'd found on Daniel's personal computer during the raid. They weren't just planning to steal from you. I looked at the screen. Detailed plans, schedules, dosages. Instructions for staff at Meadowbrook to administer an accidental overdose of sedatives. They were going to kill you in 2 weeks, Chen said. You barely escaped with your life. I watched my children being read their rights, being led away to police vehicles waiting outside. They were screaming, cursing, blaming each other. The unity they'd shown minutes ago had dissolved into finger-pointing and rage. Jessica was crying, shouting that Daniel had made her do it. Lauren was demanding a lawyer. Daniel was silent now, his face a mask of fury as he stared at me through the window. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no triumph. Just a vast emptiness where my family used to be. Agent Morrison touched my shoulder gently. Mrs. Harrison, you're free to go. The custody warrant is void. The competency ruling will be overturned within 48 hours. Your assets will be unfrozen. You're safe now. Safe. What a strange word. I was alive, yes. Free, yes. But safe? I'd never be safe again. Not really. Not after learning what my own children were capable of. But I was alive. That was something. That was everything. 3 months later, I stood in my new kitchen in Vermont, watching snow fall gently outside the window. The house was smaller than the Connecticut mansion, a cozy cottage overlooking mountains that seemed to stretch forever. I'd bought it with cash, needing something that felt like mine alone. Clean, untainted by memory. The trial had been swift. With Richard's video confession, the FBI's recorded conversation, and the mountain of documentary evidence, there was little my children could do. Their lawyers tried for plea deals, but the prosecutors were merciless. Murder, attempted murder, fraud, elder abuse, bribery. The charges piled up like snowdrifts. Daniel got life without possibility of parole. He'd been the ringleader, the one who'd purchased the arsenic, who'd administered it day after day. At sentencing, he'd stared at me with such hatred that the bailiff had moved closer, hand on his weapon. Lauren received 40 years. Her lawyer husband got 18 years for money laundering and conspiracy. She'd cried during sentencing, begging the judge for mercy because of her children. My grandchildren. I hadn't seen them since before Richard died. They were being raised by her husband's parents now. Maybe that was for the best. Jessica got 35 years. At sentencing, she'd screamed at me. This is your fault. You turned Dad against us. You destroyed this family. The judge had held her in contempt, adding another 6 months to her sentence. Dr. Patterson lost his medical license and got 10 years for fraud and conspiracy. Attorney Howard was disbarred and got 15 years. Judge Brenner was impeached, removed from the bench, and sentenced to 20 years for corruption. The scandal had rocked the Connecticut legal system. The competency ruling was overturned immediately after the arrests. An independent psychiatric evaluation confirmed what I already knew. I was perfectly sound of mind, sharp, intelligent, capable. The evaluation report noted signs of trauma and stress, but nothing that impaired my judgment or capacity. The trust was validated. $530 million. even more than Richard had estimated. I inherited it all. The Connecticut house, the company, the properties, the investments. Everything. I'd sold the Connecticut house immediately. Couldn't bear to live there. Couldn't walk through rooms where my children had plotted murder. I sold it to a young family with 3 small children. I hoped they'd fill it with laughter and love. Replace the poison with something clean. The $45 million my children had received was frozen as proceeds of crime and eventually recovered. I donated $30 million of it to establish the Richard Harrison Elder Justice Foundation. It provided free legal services to elderly victims of family financial abuse, funded investigations, lobbied for stronger elder abuse laws. It was helping hundreds of families across the country. That had become my life's work. Gerald Montrose had called me a week after the trial ended, crying so hard he could barely speak. He apologized for abandoning me when I'd needed him most. I forgave him. Fear makes us all do things we regret. I restored his partnership share in Thompson Montrose Enterprises, giving him $40 million and full control of the company's operations. He'd wept with gratitude and promised to honor Richard's memory by running the company with integrity. I reconnected with real friends, the ones who'd believed me, or at least given me the benefit of doubt. Patricia from book club apologized profusely for doubting me. We met for coffee once a month now. My sister Sarah had flown from California the day after the arrests, crying and apologizing. She stayed with me for 2 weeks, helping me process everything. We were closer now than we'd been in years. One morning in my Vermont kitchen, 6 months after the trial, a woman approached me at the local coffee shop. I recognized her immediately. The woman from the courthouse, the one who'd given me the note about box 447. "Mrs. Harrison? I'm Amanda Burke. May I sit down?" I gestured to the empty chair. "You're the one who helped me." She nodded. "I'm a former private investigator. Your husband hired me 2 months before he died. He knew he was being poisoned. He knew what your children were planning, but he was too sick to fight directly. So he hired me to help him hide the evidence, set up the safety deposit box, create the fail-safes. Why didn't you come forward during the competency hearing?" "Client confidentiality issues. Richard was still alive when he hired me, and certain protections applied to our communications. I couldn't testify directly, but I could nudge you in the right direction. The note at the courthouse was all I could risk. You saved my life." She shook her head. "You saved your own life. You fought back when most people would have given up. Richard said you would. He said you were stronger than you knew." Tears pricked my eyes. I wish he'd told me sooner, trusted me to help him. He wanted to protect you. He thought if you knew, they'd come after you immediately. He was buying time, trying to gather enough evidence to destroy them completely before he died. He just ran out of time. Amanda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "He loved you very much. His last months were spent making sure you'd survive what was coming." After she left, I drove to the small cemetery where Richard was buried. I'd had him moved from Connecticut to Vermont, closer to my new home. His grave sat under a maple tree, simple granite marker with his name and dates. I'd visited a few times since the move, but this was the first time I felt ready to really talk to him. I sat on the bench near his grave and spoke quietly. "I forgive you for keeping secrets, for not stopping the children sooner, for all of it. I understand now. You did what you could with the time you had. The letter, the key, the evidence, Amanda. It was all love. You were protecting me the only way you knew how." The wind rustled through the maple leaves. "I wish you'd told me sooner. We could have faced them together. But I understand why you didn't. You were trying to keep me safe. That's what you always did. Even when it meant shouldering burdens alone." I placed flowers on the grave. Yellow roses, his favorite. "Rest now. Justice is done. They can't hurt anyone else. The foundation is helping people. Your legacy is being honored. You can be at peace." Letters had started arriving from my children about 4 months after sentencing. Daniel's letter was bitter, blaming me for turning Dad against them, insisting they'd only wanted what they deserved. No remorse, no admission of guilt, no apology. Lauren's letter was self-pitying. She claimed Daniel had manipulated her, that she'd been a victim too. She begged for money for her appeal fund, as if I would finance her attempt to escape justice. Jessica's letter was pure venom. She said I'd destroyed the family, that everything was my fault for being weak and pathetic. She cursed me, wished terrible things upon me. None of them apologized. None admitted true guilt. None asked for forgiveness. They couldn't see what they'd become, couldn't understand that their choices had consequences. I wrote back to each of them once. The same message for all three. I loved you. I would have given you anything. All you had to do was love me back. You chose greed, cruelty, and violence instead. These are the consequences of your choices. I hope someday you understand what you've lost, but I won't hold my breath. Goodbye. I didn't expect responses. That chapter of my life was closed, locked, buried. Life in Vermont was quiet, simple. I volunteered at the local library, reading to children every Tuesday afternoon. Their faces lit up during story time, so innocent and trusting. I hoped they'd never know betrayal like I had. I hoped their families loved them truly, wholly, without strings attached. The foundation work kept me busy. We'd helped over 400 families so far. Elderly people being financially abused by relatives, cases of guardianship fraud, situations where children or caregivers were stealing from vulnerable seniors. Each case broke my heart, but each victory healed it a little too. I'd started dating again. Thomas, a kind widower from town. He owned a hardware store, had gentle hands and a quick smile. We took things slowly. Coffee dates, walks in the mountains, dinners where we talked about books and gardens and safe, comfortable things. He knew my story, everyone in town did, but he treated me like I was just Candace. Not the woman whose children tried to kill her. Just a woman starting over. On my 68th birthday, Thomas took me to dinner at a small French restaurant in Burlington. As we sat overlooking Lake Champlain, watching the sunset paint the water gold and pink, he raised his glass. To new beginnings, he said. To second chances, I added. We clinked glasses, and I felt something unfamiliar bloom in my chest. Contentment, maybe. Peace. The future stretching ahead with possibility instead of dread. I thought about the letter often, that simple white envelope that changed everything, that brass key that unlocked the truth. My children had gotten $15 million and thought they were getting everything. I'd gotten a letter and thought I was getting nothing. In the end, I got justice, truth, and a new life. They got prison cells and the weight of their crimes. Sometimes the smallest inheritance carries the greatest value. Sometimes the last thing you expect is the first thing you need. I've learned so much these past months. Family should be built on love, not obligation or money. Real family stands by you when times are hard. Blood relation means nothing if there's no love behind it. Trust yourself. When everyone says you're wrong, when the whole world doubts you, if you know the truth in your heart, then keep fighting. Your truth matters. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone silence you. Evil doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it looks like your children, wears a familiar face, speaks with voices you've known all your life. But that doesn't mean you should accept it. Recognizing evil, even when it's wrapped in love's clothing, is the first step to fighting it. Justice might take time, but it's worth fighting for. Don't give up, even when the system seems rigged against you, even when every door closes. Keep pushing, keep searching, keep believing. The truth has a way of emerging if you're persistent enough to chase it. You're never too old to start over. Loss can be the beginning of something better. I'm 68 years old, and I'm finally living on my own terms. That's worth more than all the money in the world. I sit on my porch now as evening falls, watching snow dust the mountains. I have a good life. Simple, honest, mine. The foundation is thriving. I have friends who care about me for who I am, not what I have. I have purpose and peace. Sometimes I take out Richard's letter and read it again. The paper is worn now, soft from handling, but the words still carry weight. Trust what you find. I did, and it saved me. I got a letter and a key when I thought I was getting nothing. My children got $15 million and thought they were getting everything. But in the end, I received justice, peace, and freedom. They received exactly what they deserved. And that, somehow, is enough. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up against family when you knew they were wrong? Have you faced a situation where the people closest to you betrayed your trust? How did you find the strength to fight back? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else facing similar struggles. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength in impossible situations. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's fighting their own battle and needs to know they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're stronger than you think, that truth matters, that justice, even when delayed, is worth pursuing. Stay strong, trust yourself, and never give up fighting for what's right. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.